All right, guys, the Epstein saga continues. If you've been paying attention, you know what an absolute clown show this whole Epstein Files release has been. From them taking down up to 16 files after uploading them, including a photo of Trump, to adding photos of Michael Jackson, which apparently had nothing to do with Epstein, redacting out, a kid that had nothing to do with being a victim, to the failed redactions that they actually just used a black highlighter in like a text editing application that you can go and unredact yourself. We did a whole video on that if you want to go see how that's done. Insane stuff. Well, we now have a message from Bill Clinton, one of the people, of course, involved in the Epstein files. And he is calling out Trump basically to tell him to just release all the files. Like, go ahead. Bill Clinton is not afraid. He wants to see all the files released. So here's a message from his spokesperson. The Epstein Files Transparency Act imposes a clear legal duty on the U.S. Department of Justice to produce the full and complete record the public demands and deserves. However, what the Department of Justice has released so far and the manner in which it did so makes one thing clear. Someone or something is being protected. We do not know whom, what, or why, but we do know this. We need no such protection. Accordingly, we call on President Trump to direct Attorney General Bondi to immediately release any remaining materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of Bill Clinton. This includes, without limitation, any records that may exist and are subject to disclosure under Act Public Law 11938, enacted November 19th, 2025. This was the Transparency Act put forth by Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, including grand jury transcripts, interview notes, photographs, and findings by the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, as referenced under oath to Congress by President Trump's first-term Attorney General. Refusal to do so will confirm the widespread suspicion the Department of Justice's actions to date are not about transparency, but about insinuation, using selective releases to imply wrongdoing about individuals who have already been repeatedly cleared by the very same Department of Justice over many years, under presidents and attorneys general of both parties. So here we have just a clear call out by Bill Clinton and his team saying, release everything. We don't care if we're in it. Our name is in it. Our photographs, release it all. What you're doing right now is selectively releasing things to insinuate that Bill Clinton is guilty and that others like Trump are innocent. This is astonishing to me that they actually came out and said this, and it actually shows a lot about how confident they are about their involvement in the Epstein files, and also seemingly knowing that there's a lot more to Trump and others that is not being released to the public. Mike, what do you make of this statement from Bill Clinton and his team?
I think it's pretty interesting. Playing devil's advocate here, it's possible that Clinton was making the statement knowing that the full files would never be released or anything like that. So it could be sort of like a, look, I'm guilty, but I'm going to make it look like I'm not guilty. But I think making that play, like, he doesn't have to make that play, right? So to actually make that play and call that bluff, at least puts him towards the column of being innocent. Now, I don't know how innocent overall he would be, but at the very least, like they said, if you release everything, then everybody can see everything for what it is. This is the entire problem with how they're handling this situation, is because everything is left up to speculation, and we're left up to speculating based off of the very, very little information that we actually have. Whereas there's clear evidence that they've been redacting names of companies and names of people who are definitely not victims. So that in and of itself is illegal. But because they're redacting predators, potential predators, as well as all these companies or information that has to do with things that are not related to victims, because of that, they are causing the public to sit here and speculate and wonder and question. And so when you throw out Bill Clinton unredacted, it's a lot easier to connect dots that may not necessarily be there, especially with them including this photo of Michael Jackson that you pointed out, Emmanuel, where, Michael Jackson was accused of sexual assault. So to put him next to Clinton, who already was impeached because of the Monica Lewinsky scandal and all these other things, it allows people to sort of jump to these conclusions, even though that particular photo that he has with Michael Jackson is from a DNC fundraiser in 2003 and has nothing at all to do with Epstein. So I think it's good that, whether he's guilty or innocent, I think it's good for Bill Clinton to call for the release of the full files. This is what everybody should be on board with. And on a personal note, I've always said that if one person who is guilty comes out and says, look, I was guilty, I was there, I did this, I did that, whatever, but they are able to name and shame and have proof of like other people, I'm not necessarily saying they should get a pass, but at the very least, like, that person would be like a whistleblower in such a situation. So, I'm not saying that's what Bill Clinton's doing here, but just highlighting the fact that we need full transparency. For Clinton to advocate for full transparency and to condemn this DOJ, especially after they've already cleared him, as they pointed out, it's interesting to see where it goes, because I don't know. I personally think that this DOJ is going to do whatever is best for Trump, and whatever Trump says. They're not going to necessarily take Bill Clinton's word for, counting for much, but I think that it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Something you mentioned off air, if you go to Newsmax, for example, and you hear their coverage of the Epstein files, you will hear them talk about Bill Clinton is in them. Bill Clinton this, Bill Clinton that. Why is everyone so focused on Trump? Clearly, Bill Clinton is the one here we should all be focused on. Well, that seems to be exactly the play that the DOJ has been attempting with this selective release. And outlets like far-right outlets like Newsmax, or probably OAN as well, they're just taking the bait. They're taking the bait for what it is. And, for example, you look at Fox News, a bit more mainstream, they're not really talking about the Epstein files all that much. I mean, it's arguably the biggest cover-up in U.S. history, and they're kind of not talking about it that much. It's like, what the hell's going on here? Well, it seems to be that they are getting the wink and the nod from the DOJ to not press too hard and to take what they give us and take it at face value for what it is. That seems to be their whole entire strategy, is to say, look, Bill Clinton's guilty. Go after him. Don't talk about Trump. Don't worry about Trump. He's innocent. What are you talking about? We took the photos down, not because Trump is in them. It's because, well, there were women in the photos. It's like, well, then why didn't you put the photos up with just the women redacted? Like, questions like these are not answered. And on Todd Blanche, the deputy attorney general who was on Meet the Press, he just went on there blatantly lying about things that they were supposed to do, things that they were going to do, things that they weren't going to do, about the redactions. The law requires them to redact victims and identifiable information about the victims. Why are they redacting the elites? Why are they redacting people that are absolutely not victims? This question has not been answered yet. And I hope that they get another chance to ask him that directly, because the law does not require them to redact the elites. I think this whole statement from the Bill Clinton team was pretty smart, because it really kind of puts the ball back in Trump's court and say, look, Bill Clinton, the one you say is the guilty one of all this, is saying, go ahead, release them all. Let's see what's in there. Put them all out. We have nothing to hide. I think it's very politically smart, and also just says a lot about who's really implicated here. We'll see if anything comes of this, knowing this Department of Justice and this FBI is a complete clown show. So they're just going to probably just keep backpedaling and keep covering for dear leader. But man, it is really nice to see the pressure on them. But what's something I mentioned before that I think is worth mentioning again is, where are the conspiracy theorists on this one? The ones that we've been hearing about for years and years and years, dating back to 9/11, to Pizzagate, to Sandy Hook. Alex Jones was the big, I'm going to uncover everything, and it's like, Where, not a peep from him, not a peep from these others, not a peep from JD Vance, who was calling for the Epstein files to be released, not a peep from Dan Bongino, who just announced his resignation a few days ago, which is also kind of telling if you want to think about that one. Kash Patel, all these other people who were like, we need to get to the bottom of this. Now that we are seeing what's in these files and just barely 1%, we have 300 gigs of these Epstein files allegedly out there, and they've only released about 1.5 gigs or 2.5 gigs or something like that, not even 1%. There should be more questions from everybody on this. This is mainstream now. This isn't a fringe conspiracy anymore like it was back in the day. So where are all these people? That's my big question.
Yeah, no matter how you look at it, there's always going to be more questions than answers right now. And I do think that you bring up a great point about the conspiracy theorists, because again, a lot of conspiracy theorists gravitate towards the Clintons in particular. You've got all the Pizzagate was about Hillary Clinton. So, and obviously you've got all the drama about Hillary Clinton going up against Trump as well, and yada yada. So there's a lot of room for people who previously speculated, believed in conspiracy theories, that assumed all of these evil things about the Clintons being child predators and whatnot. And now that they've got the opportunity to look and see for themselves, silence. So it is definitely telling. I fully agree with you there. Another great point that you brought up too was the coverage from these right-wing outlets. I think that it's no secret that the media from the right is trying to distract, or at the very least take the DOJ's word purely at face value, like you said. But that's disingenuous. It's dishonest. It's not real journalism. And to push this narrative out to millions of people who just absorb it, this is the problem with a lot of the MAGA movement, is they're in this echo chamber where they don't hear anything else. So even though we should be able to sit here and say, look, why didn't you go and look at the files yourself? It's easy, blah, blah, blah. If they're not being told, because, we go around and we look at these other sources and we can see these things for ourselves. But if they are not being told, hey, this is like a problem, this happened or that happened or this happened, did you see this, and blah, 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 then they don't really know any better per se. So some of them have been told, and that's where they choose to be willfully ignorant, and that's a completely different story. But by and large, the masses are mostly unaware of what's going on. I can almost guarantee anybody who watches Fox on the regular, especially if they don't watch any other outlets at all, probably has no idea at how badly these files have been handled. But at the same time, as you mentioned, these same outlets will harp on Clinton, and they'll say Clinton's in the files, Clinton's been mentioned, Clinton this, Clinton that, Clinton this, Clinton that. And they go, man, Clinton's all over these Epstein files, we should do something about him. But meanwhile, of course they're going to sit back and say, why should we go after Trump? Trump's been the one who released them. He's doing the right thing. So it is really funny how there is like this complete narrative twist, and all it involves is just keeping people ignorant, which again is no secret from the right. This is literally their bread and butter, is they'll tell you one thing or they'll skew it. I mean, everybody's got a slant on the news these days, but the right in particular will omit, and they will not tell you everything that's happening, and then additionally tell you a spin of what is happening. So it's shameful to see. I think that, in my opinion, what I want to see now is I want to see Pam Bondi out. I want to see Kash Patel out. These people need to be, at the very least, they need to resign. I personally think they should be in jail because they've clearly broken the law. I don't think they need to be in there for years and years, but at the very least, they need to be in handcuffs. We cannot allow this to happen. And I hope that there's something Congress can do or somebody can do to hold these people accountable, because if we do not, it's all going to slip through.